Good evening, everyone. This is Rebecca Sharuk, Senior Director of Alumni Relations here at Jefferson, and I wanted to thank you all for joining us this evening for our Ram Madness online talk, joined with Coach Shirley for a little sneak peek. So we'll be going over a little bit about, what the Jefferson Athletic Department looks like today and, a little glimpse into the future. So I will get started. I want to let everyone know, if you're in the Philadelphia area, you can save the date for a holiday evening with the Philly Pops, which will be happening this year on Wednesday, December 11th. Have a lot of events happening in the Philadelphia area and around, so please feel free to check the Jefferson Alumni website for an event near you if you're not in the Philadelphia area. Just a note that we are recording this webinar for this evening, and we'll send it to everyone when we're done, so you can share it with anyone who may have missed it. And we will take questions at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Coach Shirley so he can give us our online presentation. Thank you, Coach Shirley, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, and good evening to everyone. For those of you that I've never had the pleasure of meeting, just a brief introduction. I've been at the school for 31 years, starting in '89 at Philadelphia Textile, then moving on to Philadelphia University, and now certainly Jefferson. So it's been a great ride, and look forward to continuing. Did my undergraduate degree at DeSales University in economics, and got my master's degree at Temple in 1984 in sports administration. So spent about 5 years at Ford Motor Company before going to DeSales University for 8 years, and then, of course, spending the last 31 here. So it's been a good run, and looking forward to giving you some background information on our department. So in terms of where we are currently, and if we can go to the first slide, I'll just tell you that we have been members of the Central Atlantic Collegiate Conference, also known as the CACC, since 2005. Prior to that, we were in a conference called the New York Collegiate Athletic Conference up in New York, with our closest game being at Queens College. So we were able to get much more geographically friendly by joining the CACC. So in 2017, that membership switched over to Jefferson, and right now we're part of 14 schools that runs about a 4-hour footprint from Wilmington, Delaware, until Waterbury, Connecticut, up at Post University. We're split in 2 divisions for most sports, so missed class time is really at a minimum for us, and the New York trips, which start around Giant Stadium and head up to Waterbury, are usually done on the weekends, so we don't have any missed class time there. So we have 17 sports. There are 2 that are not in the league. One is women's rowing, and one is women's golf. We need to have 6 schools sponsoring a sport to make it a conference championship. We do have 2 other women's golf teams, making it 3, but we don't have any other teams that are rowing currently. So we've won 32 conference championships in the 14 years that we've been there. So it's been a pretty good run. It's been a pretty good league for us, and we are still NCAA Division II. So the next slide will tell you a little bit about our staffing at the moment. You can see we now have 16 people that are full-time with us. I won't go through and read all their names, but I will tell you that the recent additions have been Pat Horvath, who became full-time about 4 years ago, and also does community engagement for us, which has been really, really important. And last year we logged about 4,900 hours of community service time between our 17 sports. The other person is Tom Myers. Tom has been our men's soccer coach for 10 years, but again, in the last 4 years became full-time, and helps us with intercollegiate recruiting. So he's assisting our coaches, particularly our part-time coaches, with doing some recruiting and trying to pick up some non-scholarship athletes to kind of increase squad size and round out the end of the bench. So those 2 have been great additions. And Monday, Dave Thomas, who's been our long-time track and field and cross-country coach, became a full-time employee. So now we have Coach Thomas coaching 4 sports: men's and women's cross-country, men's and women's track, and that's been a great addition because, as you'll see later, he's been our most successful coach in terms of championships. So just a quick overview of our full-time staff. And if you go to the next slide, you'll be able to see who our current part-time coaches are. Our women's soccer coach is joining us for the first year. And then women's lacrosse, men's golf, women's tennis, and men's tennis are one spot, and then volleyball and softball. As we look down the road, the next full-time position that we would like to try to address is the tennis position, because it does have one coach coaching two sports. So we feel that it'd be helpful if we get that to be a full-time position. So 8 of our 17 teams have head coaches that are not employed full-time. We have 21 part-time assistants, and we have 8 volunteer coaches. Mainly the volunteer coaches are the young people that want to try to, get their foot in the water and see if they can get some interest in intercollegiate athletics. So that's positions that change almost season by season. And the next slide will show you the roster sizes that we currently have. And of course, these are always fluctuating because people decide they want to try out for spring sports or they want to leave current sports. But so right now, you can see individually the number of athletes per team for men and for women. We do have 10 female sports and 7 male sports, which is fairly consistent with our population, which is about 69% females students within our total campus population. We have 306 student athletes, and then we have about 23 that are playing dual sports, 14 cheerleaders. So all in all, we have 320 students involved in our athletic program. That number's been about as high as 350 and as low as 300. So we're kind of in the middle right now as to where we are. The next sport that we would look to add down the road would be men's lacrosse, because the plan on the table, which has been green lighted, is to take Ravenhill Field and turf it, as they also build an 8-lane track with hopefully all the amenities that we would need to be over there, and then have both soccer teams and both lacrosse teams play off that surface. And then in addition, while that construction is happening, there's a plan to build a new dormitory over there and replace Fortest Hall. So that's coming. And you'll also notice for baseball, we want to expand the roster by adding a JV team. So now we have a total of 51 student athletes. We really don't designate too much who's a JV roster player. We just fluctuate them back and forth between JV and varsity. But that is by far our standalone single biggest sport in terms of numbers. The next page will just give you an idea of some of the events that we have traditionally, but also coming up in 1920. Coach McGee needs 4 more wins to reach 1,100 for his career, which should happen very early in the season. The first 3 games are on the road, but if he gets those 3 wins, then the Kutztown game would be our first game at home. That would put him number 2 all time behind Mike Krzyzewski for most wins, and obviously number 1 in Division II. Coach McGee and myself are currently the winningest coaching duo in the NCAA of all divisions, with combined wins of 1,873. However, with him having 1,096, he will continue to remind me that I am the JV coach and I'm just carrying up the rear. So, a role I readily accept. Ram Madness, which is our annual basketball kickoff, is actually tomorrow night. Our men's basketball alumni fundraiser is coming up on November the 3rd. We are hosting the East Regional Championships for cross country at Belmont Plateau, which means 44 schools from 3 different conferences up as far as Vermont will come down to Belmont Plateau and race. We will have an athletic day of giving on Tuesday, November 12th from noon to noon, looking to raise some funds for all of our individual sports teams and monies that would go into their fundraising accounts to help them do some additional things. Our Alumni Day for basketball will be Saturday, February 29th, with an alumni game for the women. Jefferson women's basketball will play Holy Family, and men's basketball will play Holy Family as well at 2 and 4, with senior day ceremonies. We will celebrate the 50th anniversary of our national championship team from 1970. And then we have a happy hour after that that benefits a scholarship fund that was started for my parents back in 2008. Currently sits about $314,000. So continue to try to raise some funds for that. We'll do our every other year Hall of Fame on Friday, May 1st. We're now discussing candidates for that class. And our sports recognition night, which is kind of our award night for all of our athletes, is May the 3rd. And our alumni golf outing, which is held at the old Plymouth Country Club, now called the 1912 Club, will be June 11th, with those proceeds being split between athletics and the development office. The next slide will show you our 18-19 athletic highlights. Some of the things that happened. CACC championships were won by women's cross country and women's basketball. Some major award winners. Jess Kaminsky was the player of the year, the defensive player of the year, and the CACC tournament MVP. Aaron Campbell was defensive player of the year for lacrosse, and Callie Safer was the track athlete of the year, and Coach Thomas was our coach of the year. We had an All-American. Maxie was a second-team All-American, and Jess was an honorable mention, All-American for crew and basketball, respectively. Men's cross-country ran in the East region for men and women. Women's basketball had a 3 seed in the East region for NCAAs. And rowing came in 5th out of 6 teams at the national championship. We're also very proud of the Division II President's Award for Academic Excellence, which recognizes schools that have a academic success rate of 90% or higher. It indicates that students have graduated within basically a 6-year time allowance that the NCAA grants you to get your bachelor's degree. So we've received that award 8 out of 9 years, meaning that we've reported at 90% or higher. This year, we are filing expecting to have a 98% cohort, which would again reflect the class of 12 and 13. So the last page is just contact information for me. If you have questions or anything we can do for you, you can always reach out. As far as the upcoming basketball seasons go, we right now are currently finishing up our preseason, which allows us to be with the team for 8 hours in a week of a 5-day week. We have 4 hours with basketballs and 4 hours without basketballs, which will include things like yoga classes, running, of course. We ran the Rocky Steps. I shouldn't say we. They ran the Rocky Steps a few weeks ago. Spin classes, just different types of conditioning workouts that we do. And we can start to put some of our strategies in with the other 4 hours. So that will end on Monday, the 14th. And then on the 15th, we begin our season, which means we can practice 6 days a week, 20 hours a week. And our game schedules will start on the 9th of November and the 10th. The men will tip off in a tournament up at American International College, and we will tip off at a tournament at Chestnut Hill against Queens College. Both schedules are posted online. The rosters are not up to date yet, but the schedules are up if you're interested in getting a head start. As far as my team, we graduated 3 starters last year from a 29-3 team, arguably the best team that I've ever had in my 30 years at the school. Unfortunately, our best returning player, a young lady named Caitlin Cunningham, ripped her ACL in the summer, so that's going to be a real challenge playing without her. Our preseason schedule, which is the 26th, 30th of October, and November 3rd, include Drexel, Seton Hall, and UConn. We are going to 11-time national champion UConn on November the 3rd, all for exhibition games. We should start 4 underclassmen this year, which bodes well for next year. And we'll have 1 senior, Lena Williams, who's a returning all-conference player for us. We brought in 5 freshmen from the class of 2019, so we're certainly trying to get them acclimated as quickly as possible because we have a freshman that was brought in with an ACL as well as the one with Kate, so we have 11 rostered players currently. For the class of 20, we already have 3 commits. We have a young lady from Wilson Westlawn, a young lady from Holy Redeemer in Scranton, and we're looking at another young lady from Notre Dame in Easton, and we have a young lady from Virginia. so we're pretty excited about that class. I would say University of Sciences continues to be the queen of the league, even though we were able to beat them twice last year. They have a lot returning, including arguably one of the best players in the league, so we'll probably be all chasing them to some extent. The top 25 was just released, and we did not make that, but we are under consideration, which I guess means they talked about us. And we'll have 9 non-conference games and 19 conference games to make up our schedule. I think you're going to see us be a little more methodical with the way we play because of some of the uncertainty of 4 new starters, but we'll still try to transition the ball as best we can. And there's been a shot clock rule change this year where typically we played a 30-second shot clock. When you hit the rim, the ball resets to 30 seconds, but now it'll reset to 20 seconds. So the pace of play will be a little bit quicker this year. That rule will apply in both men's and women's basketball. For Coach McGee, it is his 60th year, excuse me, at the university, having come in as a student in 1959 and becoming the head coach at age 27 and now being here in his 53rd year as head coach. Again, 4 wins away from 1,100. They're coming off of a 22-8 season last year. They made the semifinals of the Central Atlantic Collegiate Conference. They had a very junior-dominated class last year, so this year the returning starters from last year should be in place. Prince Hickson is a senior who will average 9.2 points a game. Colin Guerrera at 14.3. Devon Mallory at 16.9. Josh Brandeis at 12.9. They're all seniors, and then DeAndre Bourne is a sophomore who averaged 13.4. So I'm sure, keeping with his style, Coach McGee will mostly play 5 players, but he also brought in 6 new players that look to be pretty good. So I think they'll be well positioned to make a run. Their preseason rankings are not out yet, nor are the CACC rankings. So we really don't know where we stand. But again, they'll tip off as well as we will on November 9th. So with that, I will take a break and open up to any questions people might have or anything else you'd like me to talk about. Rebecca?
Thank you, Coach Shirley. So again, everyone, we do have the question answers. So if you want to type in a few questions for Coach Shirley, if not, he did give us his contact information, and you can also always email alumni@jefferson.edu, and we can pass along your questions to Coach Shirley. But I feel like you covered a lot of the bases, so to speak. So thank you again for doing that for us tonight.
Sure. Is there anything else you'd like me to touch on?
No, I think that's it. I think we just wanted to give kind of an overview of the athletics, unless, any one of our alumni that are joining us and your guests have any questions. But I don't see any coming through. So are you excited for tomorrow for the first game?
Yeah, man, this is a great night. We'll have the gym packed. Students will come, obviously, for their T-shirts. That's most important.
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
we do a lot of the players get out and do a lot of mixing up. The guys and the ladies get together and do some shooting and some competition drills. We bring some fans out from the stands and give away some things. We're having a drum corps come in to entertain. So it's always a nice night, and it draws the students. So that's the really exciting part about it.
Great. And is that streamed online for people to watch while it's happening?
It will be streamed online. If you just go on the athletic website, you can pick it up right there.
All right, perfect. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions for this evening, so it was short and sweet. I know you have a long night tomorrow, so thank you again for joining us, and I want to thank all the alumni and guests who joined us for this evening as well.
Okay, you're welcome. Good night. Thank you.
All right, good night. Good night, everyone.